guys, welcome to the New Movie Thing show. This is the show where we go to the movie theaters and we watch brand new movies that have come out today in the United States. I'm Steve Zaragoza.
And I'm DJ Wooldridge.
Today we saw a film by Mr. Mark Webb. It is the sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man, and it is surprisingly titled The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
You want to know the other surprising thing about this movie is that they did the Amazing Spider-Man title drop in this movie.
They sure did, yeah.
I really wanted to see, oh, he's so great. They should call him the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It was the titular line. They did the titular.
But I think it would have been better if he thrown the 2 at the end. They should call him the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So this movie stars Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker.
And Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy.
And whether or not you like them, they are our new heroes slash heroine of this Spider-Man franchise, which I think is leaps and bounds better than the Sam Raimi series, although Spider-Man 2 is debatably still a good superhero movie.
You think this series overall is better than Sam Raimi series?
Yes. DJ has to use the restroom.
I'm gonna be honest with you right now. The first Spider-Man movie, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, is the first movie I ever loved. Loved, hands down loved, and to this day, it is still my favorite Spider-Man movie. You know why? Because Spider-Man 2 was all about that stupid love bullshit between Tobey Maguire and Kristen Dunst. I didn't give a flying fuck about that.
Yeah, but Doc Ock makes up for all of it.
Doc Ock was rad. Doc Ock was rad. And the one thing I will say about these new movies, is that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are way better chemistry-wise than Tobey Maguire and Kristen Dunst.
Right, because Kirsten Dunst, when she's on screen, you wish that you had a magical movie glove that you could use to punch her in the face.
It's true.
From your theater seat.
And the other thing I will say about Amazing Spider-Man 2 is leaps and bounds better than the steaming pile of shit that was Amazing Spider-Man 1.
My quickie review for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is, it's an enjoyable comic book movie. It's like picking up a trade in the old comic book shop and getting a good read. It's a page turner, and I absolutely enjoyed it.
I will say it does feel a lot like there was a checklist that like, oh, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this needs to happen. And everybody, especially the actors, are striving mightily to try and make that not feel like a checklist, and they almost sort of succeed.
That's your quickie review?
I guess so. I thought my quickie review was that it was better than The Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
No.
It should also be noted that we saw the film in 3D IMAX, which I believe it enhanced the movie experience.
Yeah, it wasn't awful. I usually don't like 3D, but this one was actually it made sense for it to be in 3D.
Well, you're seeing the web slinger slinging around through the streets of New York, and, or I'm sorry, the streets of New York. And,
DC
I'm sorry, I thought Metropolis, but it's not Metropolis, because that's where Superman is.
Despite how hard, for some reason, all the Sony Spider-Man movies really want you to think he's Superman. Like, every time he does something cool, this, like, Superman-type theme kicks in. There's this really cool scene where Elektra's about ready to fry a bunch of people, and Spidey saves them, and then this music kicks in like, hey, wasn't that fucking cool? Yeah, what? Why are you shoving it in my face? It was cool. Why are you trying to, so hard to tell me that it's cool? Like, the music in this film was weird. Didn't you think it was weird?
No.
Like, the little, like, every time Elektra was getting heated, it became like Spider-Man Into the Dark, the musical, like the voices in his head.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. But I thought that I'd never seen that in a movie before.
And I started to like it, and then it kept happening. I'm like, I'm over this.
I think that it's an interesting thing to complain about, since really what the score is trying to do is to create the hero's theme for when the hero does something heroic.
Yeah. But it just felt like it was beating me over the head with it. Spider-Man's not Superman. He doesn't need some sort of American rah-rah theme to go with every time he does something cool, in my opinion. And the Raimi movies did it too, and it was weird to me.
Probably because it's like, thematically, the music is just as important as the visuals.
I agree. I just feel like the music could have been done better. That's all. Just took me out of the experience. Did you work on the music?
No, but I didn't.
Am I personally insulting you? I'm sorry.
No,
you did a good job.
I'm
it was a good
sweating
score.
like a boy who's sick and has a fever and is dying of pneumonia.
Do you have a fever?
Maybe.
You're gonna murder me.
The performances were great. Sally Field classed up the joint. She's always a sweetheart.
She was Aunt May.
Aunt May, and Andrew Garfield, great. You know, a lot of people, he's a controversial Peter Parker.
Yeah,
because you had your Tobey Maguire, and honestly, I was always creeped out by Tobey Maguire.
Understandable.
Always. He stands there and he's got that million-mile stare.
Also in the movie is Jamie Foxx as Electro, who's kind of wasted. Dane DeHaan as Green Goblin, who's kind of wasted, and Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, who's definitely wasted.
Well, I think that I was wondering, there were a lot of points. First of all, the movie clocks in at 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It's a long one.
It's definitely a long movie, and there were points where I was thinking, like, wait a minute, isn't there supposed to be multiple villains in this movie?
Yeah.
And I was slightly concerned with how they were going to shoehorn that in.
Well, and it's tough because the movie is essentially Electro's, and I think Jamie Foxx did a good job with the character.
I thought he did great. I think most importantly to me with a comic book movie, it is first and foremost, it actually feels like I'm reading a comic book.
Yeah.
And it's just as good as reading a comic book. And I feel like for me, Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did that. It felt like I was reading a comic book. I was entertained thoroughly throughout. The villains were cool. They didn't seem shoehorned in. They didn't seem like they were forcefully, cramming all of this material into one movie, whereas Spider-Man 3 felt like an absolute mess of garbage, basically.
See, I disagree. I feel like this movie was more convoluted than Spider-Man 3. It was better than Spider-Man 3, but I feel like it was more, I could see the gears more. Like, hey, look, we have a Spider-Man 3 to build to, we have a Venom movie to build to, we have a Sinister 6 movie to build to, we need to start getting things going.
But I feel like just like the way that an Avengers movie shouldn't work, because you're focusing on like 12 different main characters, 12 different heroes, somehow it still worked. I feel like you could take that feeling and plug it right into Amazing Spider-Man 2. I felt like there were a lot of characters to focus on. It's essentially Electro's movie with... Well, no, it's Peter Parker's movie, but the main villain is definitely Electro. But I felt like it really felt natural to me, even though it should feel convoluted, because the trailers are like, what the fuck am I looking at? And in fact, I went into this movie like assuming I wasn't going to like it, but I went in going like, well, here we go, I'm gonna sit through another superhero movie, let's see how it goes. And I ended up liking it because I think it worked, even though it should seem convoluted. It didn't seem that way to me because I really, there wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, this guy again? I feel like they perfectly got those beats down where you're like, took care of this guy, now here comes this guy. There's never a moment where it's like there's 8 things happening at once. Everything is very like well laid out, I think.
Personally, I think it was, I enjoyed it a lot more than I was going to. I definitely think it's a more cohesive, it has more of a direction than the first Amazing Spider-Man, which kind of felt like 2 separate movies that never quite meshed. Overall, I think I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
Cool.
It was fun. It was a fun movie. 12-year-old me would have loved this movie.
I didn't really enjoy the first Amazing Spider-Man. I thought it was just a decent movie. I didn't think it was time to reboot Spider-Man as soon as they did, but it exists, it's there. I thought the lizard stuff was a little cheesy, and I thought it went a little too into the Power Rangers kind of like TV movie territory, but this one completely salvaged the series to me. I feel like I'm ready for what's next. They're clearly setting up the Sinister Six. This is something we've known for a while. So I'm excited to see where they go with it. So with all that said, I want to give this movie 7 out of 10 because I did enjoy it. And in fact, I know I might get a lot of shit on the internet for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I actually enjoyed it more than Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
I really
surprises
did.
me too.
I really did.
Yeah, because anyway, that's a different thing. I will also say that if you want the best version of Spider-Man outside of the comics, check out the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon that was on the air a few years ago. It ends depressingly because it was canceled early, but it is surprisingly the best version of Spider-Man. And in fact, the Amazing Spider-Man films crib a lot from that series.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Also, it has to be said super quick, the visual effects in this movie, so far for all of the Spider-Man movies, leaps and bounds better than any of them. I think this is ImageWorks' best special effects work so far. I didn't think I was watching a cartoon. It didn't look like there were just like cartoony things jumping around. There were a couple of moments in the movie where Electro looks a little not great, but as far as like visual effects generally overall go for the film, I thought it was actually the best looking effects for a Spider-Man movie.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised, especially in 3D. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, please see it in 3D because it really lends to just the swinging around New York stuff and the special effects. It really did kind of heighten everything.
Yeah.
So we're not the only ones that went and saw this movie and also reviewed it. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 54%.
Oof, which is pretty rough.
And the audiences gave it 77%.
Yeah, which sounds about right.
Yeah?
Yeah. Whereas also on IMDb, it got a 7.6 out of 10, which again, that makes sense to me.
I just really hope overall it does well, because there is this facet of the Spider-Man franchise that I really do want to see it succeed.
Yeah.
Because I like Spider-Man. I think he's a good character. Of all the of the Avengers, I really think of the comic book Avengers.
Yeah.
I'm really not into Captain America. I'm really not that into Thor. I'm not that into Hawkeye. There's all these kind of characters that are just kind of like meh, but I love my Spider-Man, love my Iron Man, love my Wolverine.
Yeah.
You know,
and you just want to see them team up.
I just want to see them team up, and that was the thing. The one thing I thought about during this whole movie was, it is a damn shame that we probably won't see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, or any Spider-Man, on the big screen, swinging around with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, and just kind of like, because Peter Parker kind of idolizes Tony Stark in the comics, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
He looks up to him as like kind of like a...
Because a fellow scientist superhero.
A fellow scientist superhero, right. And so I want to see that dynamic. I want to see Robert Downey Jr. and Andrew Garfield having that rapport, and we're never going to see it, because this is Robert Downey Jr.'s last Avengers movie.
Yeah, I would say it's probably going to be a good 20 years before we see Spider-Man with the Avengers.
Yeah.
At best. Can I tell you what I want to see?
Sure.
As a fan of Spider-Man, I really want to see Venom done well.
Yeah, man.
As I grew up in the 90s, Venom is my jam. Also, can we just rehire J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson?
I know, he's such a good J. Jonah Jameson.
They're like, we can't have JJ in it because who can beat J.K. Simmons? Who cares? Dame Judi Dench stuck around through a reboot of 007. We can bring J.K. Simmons back.
Yeah, he's just the perfect.
Yeah, you can't top him. Just bring him back.
Yeah. We've seen Spider-Man 2. We reviewed it. Thank you guys for watching. Now I'm super pumped for Guardians of the Galaxy. Very excited for X-Men First Class. I know X-Men First Class comes out before Guardians of the Galaxy.
Soon,
but,
at the end of this month.
Oh my god, yeah. So we're very close. Stick around at the end of stick around during the credits for this one. There's a scene for the new X-Men movie that you should definitely check out.
Yeah, it's fun.
And yeah, so that's it, guys. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and click on one of these annotations, and check out some other stuff on the channels. I'm Steve Zaragoza.
And I'm DJ Wooldridge.
Let's swing on out of here, DJ.
All right. No,
no, those effects are not possible here. Okay? The editors don't know what to do with that.